My name is Camille Hartley. I'm 31 years old, and I used to believe that loyalty was the strongest thread in the fabric of family. I'm a creative director at a leading advertising agency in Savannah, Georgia, climbing my way up from an invisible intern to the one people call when the stakes are high. I'm not a perfectionist, but I used to believe that if I lived with integrity, loved wholeheartedly, and kept my promises, the people around me would do the same. He proposed after 3 years of dating. My sister stood beside me, beaming ear to ear, immediately claiming the role of maid of honor. My mom cried. My dad shook his hand like he was giving his daughter to a man who truly deserved her. Until the day of the ceremony, when I stood behind the microphone, looked out at over 200 guests and said, "I don't object to this marriage. I just need everyone to watch this." I hit play on the screen, and one by one, the photos of Ethan, my fiancé, holding my sister in a hotel room appeared, along with the messages, the voice recordings, the truth they thought I'd never find. I didn't need to cancel the wedding. I let the wedding cancel them for life. You're listening to this story on Renvenge Zinnia, where the truths that were once buried get told by the very people who lived them. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, ever loved someone blindly, or ever been betrayed by the ones who were supposed to protect you, maybe, just maybe, you'll see a part of yourself in this story. And if you've ever been there, in that quiet, aching kind of pain, hit subscribe. Not just to hear more stories, but to know you're not alone. I live in a loft with exposed wooden beams and large windows that look out over Whitaker Street. Every morning, I brew coffee using my mother's old ceramic dripper, flip open my wedding notebook, and check off the day's to-dos. I've never missed a deadline, not in work, and certainly not in love. I was born into the kind of family that makes people say, "She must have had a good life." My father, Raymond, is a retired military man, 28 years of service, stoic and quiet, but deeply principled. My mother, Helen, was a high school literature teacher, the kind who once made me rewrite an Emily Dickinson poem 5 times for misplacing a comma. I grew up with structure, but also love. And I was the oldest. Sierra was born when I was 3. Mom says I walked into the hospital wearing my dad's shoes and said, "I'm a big sister now." And from then on, that's how it was. I went first. I was the example, the one who gave up the better slice, the shinier toy, the last cookie. Sierra was nothing like me. She had soft, curly hair like ocean waves and a smile that made people feel like something was missing when it wasn't around. She couldn't plan a thing to save her life, but she had this effortless way of making people love her. If I was the one who arranged the lights, she was the one who stepped into the spotlight. And I was used to that. I didn't mind. We never had blowout fights. There were the quiet jealousies, sure. The moments I felt like Mom defended her more, the times she cried and I was the one expected to soothe. But I loved her. I thought that was just what being a sister meant. No matter how tired, how overlooked, you still love. Because she's blood. Ethan came into my life when I was 28. At the time, I was leading a rebranding campaign for a major real estate company, and he was on the partner team, in charge of visual development for a new riverfront complex. He walked into the boardroom like someone who was used to being noticed. But when he opened his laptop and listened, really listened, I realized I was drawn not to how he looked, but how he paid attention. After the project ended, he invited me for coffee. Not the fake networking kind. The kind of coffee that turned into a 3-hour conversation about childhood, family, and why he never drank soda. We dated for over a year before he proposed. Nothing grand. Just the 2 of us on a spring trip to Asheville. No kneeling, no flash, just a quiet sentence. "I think if I didn't have you, I'd live a long life, but not really be alive." I said yes. When I told my family, my mom burst into tears. Dad shook Ethan's hand, firm, long, proud. Sierra hugged me so tightly and whispered, "You're going to be the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." She called maid of honor before I'd even chosen a dress. We started planning a fall wedding, October, when the leaves in Forsyth Park turn and the air smells like cinnamon and roasted chestnuts. The ceremony would be at St. Victoria's. The reception at the Forsyth Mansion, a pale yellow historic home where the sun always spilled through the double windows just right. I picked white hydrangeas. Sierra picked the bridesmaid dress color, deep teal. "It flatters your skin," she said. Each night I wrote in my wedding planner, 14 days. Ethan wants a jazz band. Approved. I used to think that women who got betrayed must have seen the signs. A glance held a beat, too long. A careless word. A silence that made your heart skip the wrong way. I used to believe that if it ever happened to me, I'd know. I was wrong. The truth is, sometimes the signs are right in front of you, but you choose not to see. Because seeing means hurting. Because facing it means destroying everything you spent a lifetime believing in. Like the first time I caught a strange perfume scent on Ethan's coat. He said he'd stood next to a female co-worker in a meeting. I believed him. I didn't ask more. I wrote it down in my planner under the section, "Small Things, Let Go." Or that other time, when Sierra stepped out of my office. The one where Ethan had been waiting to take me to dinner. She said she was borrowing hairspray. Ethan was fixing his collar in the mirror. Her cheeks looked slightly flushed. But I didn't ask. I told myself, maybe the hairdryer was just too hot. I believed. Or maybe I just wanted to believe. She started joining our dinners more often. The hugs got a little longer. Ethan began calling her the content princess because she was a lifestyle influencer on YouTube. She laughed, and I pretended not to see the way their eyes locked just a second too long. I remember one night, I had just stepped out of the shower. Sierra was sitting cross-legged on the kitchen stool, eating cherries from the fruit bowl I'd just stocked. Ethan was opening wine. They both turned toward me at the same time. Nothing was technically wrong in their expressions. But something wasn't right either. That night, I scribbled a line in my journal. Feels like I'm the third wheel in my own home. Maybe it's PMS. I used to think that doubt was a sign of weakness, that strong women trust, that strong women give space, privacy, respect. So I stayed silent, and I kept staying silent until one night. It was a Wednesday and a week and a half before the wedding. I was handwriting thank you cards for our guests. I wanted each one to feel personal. While searching for colored paper in my desk drawer, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No name, no signature. Just one line. The man you're marrying is in love with the one you thought would be tossing your bouquet. Attached was a photo. Not a clear one, but clear enough. A tall man, broad-shouldered, embracing a girl with long curly hair in the elevator of the Marshall House Hotel. The lighting was dim, but two things stood out. The same jacket Ethan had worn that morning when we met, and the pair of brown boots I'd given Sierra for her birthday last year. I froze. For minutes. Not angry, not even sad, just hollow. I replayed every vague moment in my head, every glance, every word. That time, Ethan said, "Sierra looked like a Dior model in that dress today." I laughed, thinking he was just being friendly. The time Sierra teased, "If I weren't your sister, I might have a crush on him." I thought it was just a joke. The time Ethan accidentally flashed his Instagram messages and Sierra's avatar was right at the top. I pretended I didn't see. Pretend. All the things I brushed off to avoid becoming the suspicious type. They came back like needles, pricking me one by one. I didn't know who sent the photo, and I couldn't prove anything with just one blurry picture. But I knew that feeling, that woman's instinct, the one you can't name, but it knows. It knows when the air has shifted, even if no one says a word. I sat there still holding the photo. The worst-case scenarios ran through my mind and then dissolved just as quickly because I didn't cry. Instead, I opened the drawer below, pulled out my wedding planner, and turned to a blank page. I wrote, If this is true, I need evidence. If this is wrong, I need peace. In both cases, I will not stay silent. I've always believed in the details, in consistency, in systems. I've never broken protocol, not even when the man I loved was about to break me. And from that moment on, I stopped looking for explanations. I started looking for the truth, and I would let the truth speak in front of everyone. I used to think that if I ever found out someone I loved was cheating, I'd throw something. I'd scream, cry, or at the very least, call someone. But when it actually happened, I went silent. A kind of silence like when you've already seen the car hit you, but haven't felt the pain yet. 3 days after that anonymous message, I had proof. And it didn't come from a private investigator. It wasn't from hacking security cameras. It came from my own sister. Sierra had a habit of using my iPad whenever she stayed over, especially to watch Netflix on the bigger screen. I still had family sharing enabled. Just a small convenience I thought was harmless to offer. I never imagined it would end up sharing something I never wanted to see. That Saturday night, as I was checking RSVP emails on the iPad, a notification popped up from Sierra's iCloud photo album, still temporarily synced through my secondary account on the device, and in a blink I saw a folder titled, "To delete soon." I didn't hesitate. I opened it. 20 photos, some blurry, some cut off, but 4 of them, clearer than any explanation they could ever give. Ethan, wearing the blue shirt I gave him, standing way too close to Sierra, who was in a silk pink slip dress inside a hotel room. They were laughing. One was taken in the mirror, his arm wrapped around her waist. Another showed Sierra planting a kiss on his cheek with a caption that read, "Still wrong, or just a better version of right?" I don't remember how I exhaled, just that I put the iPad down, very gently, so gently, like I was afraid something might shatter. Not the screen, me. I didn't speak for the next 2 hours. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call Ethan. I didn't scream. Why? I poured myself a glass of red wine, then reached for my wedding planner. The notebook I hadn't touched in 2 days. The last entry was about the reception playlist. I turned to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "They slept together. And think I don't know. Fine. Let me be the one who doesn't know, until the moment they can't not know that I know." I didn't go crazy. I made a plan. The next morning, I called Tasha, my best friend from college and the sharpest financial lawyer I know. I didn't go into detail on the phone. I just said, "Tasha, I need to meet, and I need to make sure what I'm about to do is legal." She came to my place within the hour. Laptop in hand, notepad ready, and a look in her eyes like we were preparing to sign $1 million deal. When I showed her the photos and the messages, including the voice note from Sierra to Ethan I'd extracted from the iCloud backup, she stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "You're not crazy, Camille. You're the clearest one in this mess. But if you're going to play this chess game, you need to stay silent, completely." We drew up a plan. Tasha confirmed. I had full rights to display those images and messages during a private event that I had paid for entirely. I wasn't breaching privacy. Not if the materials came from a legally linked account I owned, and not if nothing was altered. I didn't want to sue. I didn't want them jailed. I just wanted them to relive the moment they thought they'd won, and let that moment destroy them in front of the exact people they wanted to impress the most, because this wasn't personal anymore. Ethan had planned a wedding with me while planning nights with my sister. Sierra had taken souvenir photos and saved them in a private folder, like it was some secret victory. They hadn't just betrayed me. They betrayed everyone who'd stand for me that day. Everyone who'd give speeches, raise glasses, cheer for us. And now, that same wedding day would become the day their truth got served. I closed the notebook, and for the first time in days, I smiled, not because it felt good, but because I knew they wouldn't get to write the ending of this story. Not Ethan, not Sierra, Me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, hand resting on my closed wedding planner, and my mind running like a film editor on overdrive, cutting scenes together, the ceremony, the music, whispers between tables, and then, like a slap across the reel, that video from the night before. I couldn't believe I was still breathing after seeing it all. The photos, the messages, the voice note Sierra had sent to Ethan, her voice dripping with honey and breath. You know I'm not like her. I won't let things get boring after the wedding. They weren't just cheating. They saw me as a pit stop, a stepping stone, a milestone to cross before continuing something they found more exciting. And me? I used to call them family, not anymore. As soon as the sun rose, I called Tasha. She picked up after one ring. I didn't need to say much. My first sentence was, I don't want people to figure it out gradually. I want them to see everything, at once. No escape. Tasha paused for a few seconds, then replied, Then you'll need a screen and someone to control the lights. We met at our usual cafe by 10 a.m. I brought a USB. It had everything. Photos, videos, message screenshots, even the extracted voice note, complete with timestamps and metadata. She reviewed it all, then nodded. Camille, this isn't just enough to end a wedding. It's enough to ruin both of their reputations if you wanted to. I smiled. Not out of joy, but because I knew I was ready. The plan was simple and silent. We hired an AV tech I'd worked with before through my agency to install a large LED screen inside Forsyth Mansion's reception hall. The official reason? To play a slideshow of engagement pictures and a thank you video from the bride and groom. No one questioned it. I built a decoy slideshow, starting with sweet engagement shots, family portraits, and then, slowly, the transition. Photos of Sierra and Ethan, layered with captions like, Every wedding needs honesty. And sometimes the truth arrives late, but it still arrives. Then came the voice note, and finally screenshots of their messages, including, Sierra, last night was worth more than 3 years of her planning that dress. Ethan, we'll still be us, even after the curtain drops. The timing? I would wait, say nothing. Until the exact moment Father Alden asked the classic line, If anyone here objects to this union, speak now. And right then, I, the bride, would raise my hand, step forward, take the mic, and say, No one needs to say anything because everyone's about to see. Tasha handled the legal side. She drafted a notarized statement with a witness, confirming that all photos, audio, and messages were obtained legally and were my personal property. I wasn't distributing them. I was displaying them at a venue I paid for, and I wasn't forcing anyone to watch. But they wouldn't look away. I kept a neutral face the entire week before the wedding. I went to my final dress fitting with my mom, still had coffee with Sierra, who gushed about lipstick shades, bridesmaid dresses, and the heels she wore first for my future brother-in-law. I smiled. I nodded. I listened. As if I knew nothing. I wanted them to stay in character. Until the final scene. The night before the wedding, I stood alone in the empty reception hall. The screen was up. The projector tested. The lighting was programmed. I reviewed the slideshow one last time. Each slide, each transition, every calculated pause between pieces of evidence. Tasha stood beside me, arms crossed. Are you sure? You can still stop this. You could just hand it to them privately. You could... I shook my head. They didn't betray me in private. They betrayed me in the middle of a dream built on 200 blessings. I walked outside. The October wind in Savannah was crisp. I took a deep breath. Tomorrow there'd be music, a white dress, candles, flowers, wedding photos. But there wouldn't be a wedding, only the truth, and a screen big enough that no one could look away. St. Victoria Cathedral stood still and solemn, as if it had only ever witnessed vows and soft hymns. The October morning light filtered through stained glass windows, casting a hazy amber-pink glow across the altar. People called it lucky light, but I knew better. Today, that light would witness an execution. I stepped out of the car in my Elie Saab wedding gown, vintage lace, long sleeves, low-cut back. I chose the high bun not because I liked it, but because I wanted to see every single face. Sierra was the first to rush over, lifting my train. She whispered, "You look like a princess. Ethan's going to cry." I smiled faintly. If he cries, it won't be because of the dress. She didn't catch it. She was too busy snapping selfies with her bridesmaid bouquet. My mother stood by the chapel gate, eyes misty, still believing this was the most beautiful moment of her daughter's life. Inside, nearly all the guests had arrived. College friends, my colleagues, extended family, and even a few from Ethan's company. The ones who used to say, "Those two, total power couple." I spotted my father, Raymond, near the welcome table, stern as always. But when he turned to see me, his expression softened. He reached for my hand and we walked together down the aisle, toward Ethan. He smiled. No nerves, no hesitation. Just the steady confidence of a groom certain his wedding had been orchestrated to perfection. Down to the last detail, I stood before him. Somewhere in the distance, I heard murmurs, a light breeze through the windows, and my heartbeat, now steady. Because I wasn't nervous, I was ready. Father Alden began the ceremony, verses from the book, familiar lines. "We are gathered here today to witness the sacred union." I nodded at the right moments, smiled on cue. Ethan glanced over at me occasionally, gave my hand a reassuring squeeze, eyes warm, like he actually loved me. Maybe a part of him once did, but I knew. This was the day that love would be tried. Sierra stood behind me, holding the bridal bouquet. I didn't turn to look at her, but I could feel her gaze, bright, proud, unbothered by guilt. As we neared the vows, I looked toward Tasha, third row, sitting beside a small control panel for the lights and audio. She gave me a slight nod, just a few more minutes. Father Alden lifted the prayer book, his voice deep. "If there is anyone here who believes Camille and Ethan should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now, or forever hold your peace." Usually that line is just tradition, a ceremonial relic. But today, it was the opening cue. I stepped forward to the microphone. The sound of my gown brushing against the stone floor echoed in the silence. I turned to face the crowd, my mother, my father, my sister, Ethan, whose smile had just vanished. I took the mic and said clearly, "I don't have anyone here objecting to me today. I just have a truth to share, and the truth deserves light, before anyone dares to make a vow on lies." Tasha pressed the button. The cathedral lights dimmed slightly. A large LED screen to the left of the altar flickered on. The first slide, an engagement photo of Ethan and me, two people in love, then family portraits, me, Sierra, our parents. Guests chuckled softly, thinking this was just a sweet surprise slideshow. Then, the next image, a hotel room, Sierra in a silk nightgown, Ethan sitting beside her, arm wrapped around her waist, smiles, clearly visible faces, and a caption, "Still wrong? Or just a better version of right?" The murmurs stopped. The air sucked out of the room. Next slide, a screenshot of texts. Sierra, "She'll never find out." Ethan, "We just need to get through Saturday. Then we're free." Then came the voice note. Everyone in the church heard Sierra's syrupy whisper, "I know I shouldn't love you, but I can't stop, and she doesn't need to know." I said nothing. I just stood there, watching faces change, one by one. My father pulled his hand away from my mother's. My mother gasped. Ethan froze. Sierra took a step back, lips trembling. I placed the mic down gently, turned and walked toward the main doors. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to cry. I let the truth do all the talking. As I stepped through the church doors, the cold October wind sliced across my face. Not harsh, not wild, just sharp enough to peel off whatever falsehood still clung to my skin. Behind me, the screen was still glowing. Sierra's voice echoed through the sanctuary one last time. I may never be the one in a white dress, but at least I'm the one he wants to take it off. And then, silence. No wedding music, no laughter. No one stepped up to sing Ave Maria, the one I had specially requested for my walk down the aisle. I didn't look back, but I heard everything. The scraping of chairs, my mother gasping, someone dropping a phone, Sierra shouting, "It's not what it looks like." But no one answered, because in that room, no one had a reason to listen to her anymore. I stood at the stone steps of St. Victoria, eyes fixed on the burning red oaks lining the far end of the street. I didn't cry. Strangely, I had run out of tears the night I opened the "to delete soon" folder on my iPad. I thought I'd tremble, collapse, but no. The feeling was like I had just dropped a 300-pound sack of ice off my back, one I'd been carrying for a year without knowing it. It felt like freedom. The first to walk out was Aunt Phoebe, my mom's sister. She came beside me silently, placed a hand on my shoulder, and sighed. "You don't need to say another word. The family's seen enough." Next was my father. His steps were steady, not rushed, but deliberate. When he reached me, his eyes were red, but not angry. From this moment on, I won't call that man my son-in-law, and I won't call her my niece either. "You're the only one today who dared to preserve this family's dignity." I nodded. No reply. My father isn't one for thanks. He only needs what's right. And today, he saw it. Inside, the chaos had begun. "Ethan, Camille, wait, we can talk. Nobody's perfect, you know that." Sierra, crying, "This is your fault. You promised she'd never find out." My mother, shouting, "Don't you dare call her your sister again." The noise grew. Guests whispering, some leaving, some frozen mid-screenshot, phone still showing the last slide. Claire, my best friend, ran out and hugged me tight. She whispered, "You're the strongest woman I know. They deserve every ounce of this shame." I squeezed her hand once, then let go. I needed to end this alone. I walked down the steps slowly along the sidewalk beside the chapel, my gown dragged through dust and dried leaves. But I didn't care. It didn't need to stay white anymore. It had served its final scene. Ethan came running after me. I heard his footsteps, his breath ragged, calling my name. "Camille, stop. We can explain this to people. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness." I turned around. For the first time since the ceremony began, I looked him straight in the eyes. "It wasn't weakness, Ethan. It was a choice. And I'm not weak either. I just chose not to destroy everything. I let the truth do the work. Because some things don't need words anymore. People just need to see." I turned and walked away. No second glance. As I left St. Victoria, the sky brightened slightly. Sunlight pushed through the clouds. Red leaves lined the pavement on both sides. Every step I took made a soft crunch, as if autumn itself was recording each move. I went home, took off the dress, hung it on a rack, unpinned my hair, wiped away the pink lipstick Sierra had picked out for me that morning. I did it all calmly, not to forget, but to remember every detail. Because one day, if anyone ever asks me, "How did you know it was right to expose your family in front of everyone?" I'll just smile and say, "I didn't know." But I looked into the eyes of every person in that church, and I knew I didn't need to know anything more. A week after the wedding, Savannah was still buzzing. The Savannah Herald ran the story on page 2. Bride exposes groom and sister mid-ceremony, croissants with slideshow. On Reddit and Facebook, the story was everywhere under headlines like, "You won't believe what this bride did when she found out." People embellished, recreated scenes, gave me every title possible: fearless bride, ruthless lawyer. I'm not. Even some said I was a tech expert disguised as a bride. I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. I did one thing. I sent an official statement to every reporter, every guest, every friend or relative who had received an invitation. Just one paragraph. My name is Camille Hartley. I did not cancel my wedding because I changed my heart. I canceled it because I stayed true to one thing. I would not stand before God, family, and society and say vows to a man who had already broken them, even in silence. Ethan tried to contact me several times. The first message came at 3:04 a.m. the night after. "What have you done to my life?" Then, "I'll fix it. We can get past this." Then the familiar tone, "You're cruel. Why didn't you talk to me in private instead of humiliating me in front of everyone?" I didn't reply, because there's nothing to say to a man who poured wine for his fiancé's sister while still getting fitted for his wedding tux. Sierra, on the other hand, went silent. But my mother said she had sent a handwritten letter claiming it was a moment of weakness, that she always felt less than me, and she never meant to fall for him, just wanted to feel what it's like to be chosen. I didn't read the letter. I didn't let my mom read it out loud either, because I didn't care what she felt. I only cared what she did. Legally, I did everything by the book. Thanks to Tasha, I hadn't signed a single marriage license. I kept every receipt for my personal spending on the wedding, totaling over $46,000. That included the venue, outfits, floral design, catering, and AV setup. Tasha worked with the event planner to freeze any remaining payments. She also sent a legal notice to Ethan. If he made any public claims that misrepresented the reason for the wedding's cancellation, we would release the full evidence, timeline and metadata included. That one sentence was enough to shut him up. It took my mother days before she could speak to me normally again. She was torn between the heartbreak of losing one daughter and the pride of watching the other stand her ground. "You didn't have to be this strong, Camille," she said, sitting next to me on the porch one night. "But since you already were, I know now you'll never bow your head to anyone again." My father didn't say much, but he was the one who removed the family photo from the living room frame, the one with the four of us, taken the day Sierra graduated college. He replaced it with another, just me and my parents. He folded the old photo neatly, sealed it in a folder, and slid it into the cabinet drawer. "When forgiveness is ready, we'll bring it out. But for now, this family's honor needs to be placed back in order." I didn't try to stop anything that was already out there. One guest had recorded the moment I stood before the giant LED screen, my voice echoing through the cathedral. I don't need anyone to object. I just need everyone to watch this. That video hit 2 million views in 72 hours. Someone added background music, subtitles, turned me into a symbol of feminist justice. But I didn't do it for feminism. I didn't do it to go viral. I did it because I was the bride, and the bride has a right to object when the man who's supposed to be waiting at the altar is already in bed with the girl who once held her hand through childhood. A friend asked me, "Do you regret it? Making it so public?" I didn't answer right away. I just handed her a photo. It was me, standing alone on the steps of St. Victoria, behind me the screen still glowing with Sierra's voice note, surrounded by faces that had no words left. Then I said, I'd regret it if I knew the truth, and still walked forward. I'd regret it if I stayed silent, just to protect the pride of someone who had none. I used to think if the wedding didn't happen, then everything would be over. But no. Not getting married was the easy part. Living after a wedding that never happened, and knowing that everyone knows why. That's the hard part. 3 days after the ceremony, I received an email from a local news reporter. "We heard your wedding ended unexpectedly. Would you be willing to share your side of the story? I didn't respond, but I knew it was no longer just personal. Within 24 hours, screenshots of the slideshow started showing up on a Savannah Reddit thread. One user, probably a guest, posted this caption: "I thought it was just a sweet wedding video, but then slide 4 hit, and no one could unsee it. Shares exploded." On TikTok, someone layered the voiceover I played at the ceremony over soft piano music. People watched in silence. Some, who knew nothing about me, started calling it the classiest revenge ever done in white. Ethan vanished from social media the day after. The real estate firm where he worked, currently prepping for an IPO, asked him to take a leave of absence to protect brand image. From what I heard inside, he was cut from the company 2 weeks later, not because he cheated, but because he lost trust from clients, colleagues, stakeholders. Because a man who lies to his fiancé at the altar isn't someone you want at the negotiation table. Sierra, meanwhile, didn't need a script to become the villain. Her personal account, with over 300,000 followers, all about sisterhood, bridal tips, and family bonding, was mass unfollowed. Brands dropped her. One user even DM'd me a screenshot. Sierra was begging the Georgia Mom Network to take down a post about her. I didn't say a word. I didn't rally anyone. I didn't tell the world to cancel her. I stuck to one rule: you don't need revenge when the truth is loud enough for everyone to hear. Because what people fear most is not being attacked. It's being abandoned. A week later, my family had a small dinner. No wine, no cake, no flowers, just Mom's beef stew and lemonade. My dad put his chopsticks down, looked at me. "Do you think you'll ever try again? I mean, someday? A wedding?" I smiled. Not a joyful smile. Just the kind that comes from finally knowing you don't need milestones to feel complete. "I don't need a wedding to become anyone, Dad. I just need a life where I never have to apologize for choosing the wrong person again." My mom started crying. She didn't say a word, just gently added another carrot to my bowl, like she still wanted to care for me in the smallest ways. I didn't leave Savannah right away. I still went to work, still passed by the streets where, just a week ago, I had taken wedding portraits, and I saw something. People weren't just quiet. They started looking at me differently. At the cafe near my office, a young woman handed me a mocha and whispered, "You don't know me, but I saw the video. I was in the same situation, but I didn't have the courage. Because of you, I walked away." I didn't ask questions. I just placed my hand on the cup, letting its warmth spread through my palm. Tasha, my best friend and the one who helped me plan it all, sent me a text after leaving a press conference she attended. "Camille, you didn't just protect your own dignity, you set a precedent, a wedding that never happened, but made an entire city pause and ask what's truly right, and who deserves to walk forward." I stared at her message, unsure how to respond, so I typed one line: "I don't need to move forward with anyone. I just need to stop walking beside the people who once pushed me down." That night, I went home. I opened the old slideshow, not to rewatch it. I opened it to delete. I looked at every image, every message, every caption. Then I placed my finger over the delete key, not because I forgave, but because I refused to let the past define me for one more minute. It was a Friday afternoon, almost 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened, when I received a text from an unknown number. "Can I see you just once? I know you probably never want to see me again, but I'm asking for 10 minutes, not to explain, just to end it." It was Sierra. I thought I would delete it or ignore it. But then, I remembered the look in my mother's eyes the night she read Sierra's handwritten letter and quietly folded it away without saying a word. Some things you don't need to hear, but if you do hear them and still remain grounded, then maybe you've truly moved on. So I replied, "Cafe Amber. Sunday, 5 p.m., 10 minutes. That's all." I arrived on time. The cafe was empty. No regulars, no familiar faces. I chose the table by the window. Sierra walked in 3 minutes later. High-neck sweater, no makeup, hair in a low knot. She looked like someone I'd never met before. She didn't order anything. She sat down, placed both hands on the table, shaking slightly. I didn't speak. I just looked at her, calm, unflinching. She broke the silence. I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but I don't want you to think I did what I did without knowing what I ruined. I stayed silent. She went on. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe jealousy. Maybe I just couldn't take watching you be the one Mom was proud of, the one who always got chosen. I was always the cute one, the bubbly one, the perfect fit for ads and brand deals, but never the one who felt necessary. I nodded. Not in agreement, just to say, I hear you. Sierra looked down. Her voice cracked. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want you to know I do regret it. I regretted it the moment you walked out of that church, without even looking back. I looked straight at her. For the first time, and maybe the last, without rage, without shouting, just the silence that had already become a verdict. Then I spoke, slowly. Sierra, forgiveness isn't some gift I carry around, handing out to anyone who says the right words. Forgiveness is something built, over time, through actions, and sometimes through absence. Sometimes forgiveness arrives by never meeting again. She blinked back tears. I didn't look away. I continued. You asked for 10 minutes. It's been 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Here's what I'll say one last time. You are no longer part of this family, and I no longer need another sister. I stood up. I didn't wait for a response. As I walked out, I didn't turn back, but I knew Sierra was still sitting there, and that would be the last time I saw her. Not as my sister, but as a stranger I once shared blood with. Ethan never asked to see me again. Last I heard, he'd left Savannah. He was staying with a friend in Atlanta, applying for jobs at smaller firms. No contracts, no benefits. His family never called, no accusations, no apologies. Maybe they knew. There was nothing left to say. I gathered all the leftover wedding invitations, the ones we never mailed. I placed them in a wooden box along with my dried bouquet and a teal ribbon Sierra once picked out for the bridesmaids' dresses. I labeled the box, not keepsakes. Evidence I stored it in the attic. Not to remember, but so I never forget I survived it. That night, I stood in front of my apartment door, the white wooden door I'd walked through 1,000 times. I turned the knob, then slammed it shut. A single, clean, final sound. I slid the lock, pulled the curtains, made myself a cup of tea, and wrote one sentence in my notebook. I used to fear being alone. But there's nothing lonelier than standing beside people who were never truly with you. Then I added, from now on, if someone knocks, I'll ask, are they here for me? Or just for the empty seat beside me? If I don't hear the answer, I won't open the door. People often ask me, how did you survive all of it? A canceled wedding, 2 betrayals, a whole city watching. I don't have a poetic answer. All I know is, at the exact moment everyone expected me to collapse, I stood, not to fight, but to walk away from the battlefield because I finally saw it for what it was, a place where I was never truly loved, just placed exactly where they needed me to be. I transferred my office to the company's West Branch near the Tybee coast. Bright space, fewer cars, and most importantly, no one knew about the slideshow bride. I rented a small house, 2 bedrooms, 1 office, a balcony that looked out over tall pines. I bought a rocking chair, placed it on the porch, and every morning I made myself tea. No one asked, milk or honey. I chose. I poured, I stirred. I spent 2 full months detaching from everything. Social media, family chats, whispers, pity, even praise. I didn't want to be a symbol. I didn't want to be the strong survivor. I just wanted to be me again. Only this time, me, without needing anyone's approval to feel real. Tasha, my best friend and the one who stood beside me through it all, sent me a link one night. "Camille, check this out. It might spark something." It was a quiet little website where women who had canceled weddings or walked away from toxic relationships shared their stories. Not for pity, but simply to say, I lived through it. And here's how. I read. Then I thought, why not build a real space for this, where no one gets judged for saying, I didn't go through with it. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, I launched a small project called Unveiled No More Veils, a blog, a safe space, a support platform, a place where anyone could leave their story. Without being asked, did you try hard enough? No ads, no courses, just truth, and the right to say, I chose me because they didn't. I printed a new notebook, black cover, white engraving, Freedom Needs No Certificate. On the first page I wrote, Camille Hartley, born April 14th, belongs to no one and no longer waits for anyone to knock. One afternoon I walked past St. Victoria Church, not to remember, but to close the circle. I sat in the last pew, looked up at the crucifix high above. January sunlight spilled through the stained glass window, casting a soft hue across the cold tile floor. I pulled out my old wedding planner, flipped to the last blank page, the one that had never been touched, and I wrote, I once thought I'd end here, with someone, in a wedding. But it turns out, I only ever needed to begin with myself. No name on a marriage license. I signed my name into freedom, one step at a time, away from every place that stopped feeling like home. I found the old wooden box again, the one where I'd kept everything tied to the wedding that never happened, unsent invitations, the printed copy of Slide 1 from the presentation, a strip of deep teal ribbon, and one handwritten card I had meant to give Ethan on the morning of the wedding. It said, "Thank you for choosing me. I don't know what our future holds, but today, I'm happy." I read it again. I didn't cry. I simply folded it and set it aside. Then I reached for a blank card. No flowers, no ribbon, no golden edges, just white, plain truth. And I wrote, to the Camille of tomorrow, you don't need someone holding your hand to know your worth. You don't need a ring to feel seen. You don't need someone standing beside you if they won't stand for you when everything falls apart. Today you chose not to marry, not to look the other way, not to let anyone else write your story. And because of that, today you are free. Truly. Finally. Signed, Camille. Not a bride. Not the one left behind, just a woman who walked out of the wrong dream to start the right life. I folded the card, slipped it into an envelope, but didn't seal it. I placed it in the top drawer of my desk, where it's easiest to find, not to send, but to read again, whenever I need a reminder. Freedom doesn't begin when someone sets you free. It begins when you stop holding yourself back. I used to think, if someone chooses me, I'll feel worthy. But now I know. Worth doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself and walking forward, even if no one is waiting at the end of the path.